I'm going to start with the basic question, which is if you guys can just start by introducing yourselves, saying your name and speaking a little bit about what you do so everyone knows and gets the context of who's on stage. Maybe you can start, Jon.
Okay, is this working? Yeah. Hello, everyone. I'm Jon. I'm a product designer. I'm from Brazil. And today I'm a product design lead at Meta. I work for this crazy department there called the Reality Labs. And basically, we design everything VR, AR, and all the sorts, yeah. That's me.
I'm Jonathan. I'm based in London. So I was at the same college as Rui. Hello, Rui. Not at the same time, obviously. He's 25. I'm almost 100. But we learned, so it was a very design for print focused course. And of course, that's what I did when I left college. Went through lots of technological change. So 5.25-inch floppy disks, then CD-ROMs, then the internet, then the mobile revolution that we've heard about today. So lots of things, and voice UX is the latest thing I've got involved in. So I'm not a practicing designer anymore, so just for one reason or another, I'm now a UX researcher, but still working very closely with designers. And so you might ask, what am I even doing here? Well, I'm here mostly because my son and daughter are there in the audience, and I've taught them along to this conference to get them inspired about their next move. And I know this technology is going to influence their career an awful lot.
Okay. That's a very good reason to bring your son and daughter here. Commend that. I think we should give a round of applause. So I'm Jack, you've all met me already. I just thought I'd tell an interesting story. So I used to do recruitment for Jon's team. And when Alex, Jon's boss, realized that we were on the same talk, he said, "Hey, Jon, reach out to Jack." And Jon reached out to me, and it turns out that I'd sent him a message about a job opportunity about 6 years ago. So I think that illustrates, I've been doing design recruitment for a little while now. And yeah, really excited to be here.
Okay. Hello, everyone. My name is Mao again. I am the co-founder of Deploy, which is your sponsor today. And I also am the head of design of my company. We are a team of 6 designers today. And we have a product, like everyone here. We have a platform that helps us to hire better and then helps companies and designers also to get what they want. I'm a father. I didn't bring my kids because if I did, they would be tearing this place apart, right? They are 11, 9, and 6. I live in Aveiro. I'm from Brazil. That's it.
Okay, cool. And I'm going to start with the first topic, which is basically the fact of the matter of the team that we're all here. Like it's now 2024. New devices, technologies, form factors keep showing up and basically adding to the amount of stuff that we need to deal with when it comes to the, let's call it, digital reality, okay? Mm-hmm. Do you think that we're finally at that next technology shift since the smartphone that we had, for example, Daniel talked about today? Do you agree with this? Do you not agree with this? What do you guys think?
I personally think it's not going to feel like a big technology shift. I think it's going to feel like a tsunami. Okay. So, while I've been here today, just alone, I've heard about all these new technologies that have come up in people's talks. And I think, the question is, which ones do we pay attention to, which ones don't we? I think looking back in 10 years' time, it will feel like a big jump. But at the moment, it's just people, I think, are going to feel swamped. But don't feel swamped, just get involved with it.
That's a good answer. Anyone anything to add?
Well, I think me as a designer for VR and AR, I don't think in those technologies we are quite there yet. Okay. However, I think AI is something that has kind of changed the game quite a bit. And it might accelerate all those other technologies so they can happen like in a much faster pace than if we were just doing the way we used to do before. As far as a change, I agree, like we will look back in a while and see it, but I think it would be more about like how AI transformed everything and then opened many of those doors. While we were doing whatever it is, like VR and AR, whatever it is, like we are still trying to figure out like what's really gonna be like used by many people. The question I ask myself is like, what would my grandmother use? And it's definitely not a Quest headset because it's for tech adopters. Of course. So, yeah, that's my thinking.
But it's a good question at the end of the day, right? Like, I feel like it's almost like, how do we explain our jobs to our parents? It's the same question. Like, if they don't get it, it's because probably it's still not at a point where it's like generally accepted as a reality.
Yeah, I think from a recruitment perspective, over the last 5 years, we've definitely seen a dramatic increase in roles for VR, AR. So, for example, I think in 2021, Hiring.com did a survey, and they found that from 2019 to 2020, there was a 1,400% increase in roles on the market for AR and VR. So I think it demonstrates the growth. But touching on what Jon said, it's now this combination of generative AI along with new realities that is really going to speed up the world of technology. I mean, look at, for example, workrooms, the sort of space that you're in, right? I suppose before in games type environments, virtual environments, people that were working on the specialist roles like textures and all of these type of things can now use AI to massively speed up their processes. And so things that were like super intricate and tough to do in these VR, AR worlds are now becoming more possible. So I'm really excited for the tsunami that's about to come. Yeah.
In my point of view, there's a major shift happening. I think it's smooth, I agree. But still, there's something that disturbs me, is that question, that thing that they said, which is, how can I explain what I do to my parents, Things are speeding up in such a, rush. Then I see my elder son, he's 11 today, and in a few years, maybe I will never understand what he is going to do.
Yeah.
I will be seated at the same chair as my father is now, where he doesn't know what I do, right? And then 10 years from now, I'll ask my kid, my elder son, hey, what do you do for a living? Oh, Dad, I tell machines to work for me. It's a poor definition, but it's true, right? Yeah. So it's a major shift, that's for sure.
Yeah. And it's interesting when we talk about this shift and talk about, I don't know, what we do daily. A lot of us for a longer time, others less. But the fact is that we're so used to designing for interfaces, for this tactile world. Before for print, it was for communication, whatever. There was always like this visual type of reality. But the fact is with AI and a lot of this spatial computing in a lack of rectangles, let's call it like that, because we're getting out of the sheet of paper, we're getting out of the screen of your phone and going into this world where the world is your oyster. This didn't really came out well. But the fact is, like, what do you feel like it's becoming more relevant for, more relevant as a medium to tackle in all of this? Like, and also maybe what is our role in setting up these new spaces, right? Like, we're talking about AR and VR as something that it's not quite attainable yet, but it's getting there, and some people are starting to use it for creating new realities. Today, we already had people talk about building AI tools and how these AI tools are changing the way that we interact with our products. Like, I think that it's like what you guys see as the role of the designers into this space, because the fact is we are, at the end of the day, a cog in a wheel building all of these, but I don't know.
I think, please, Jon, to my mind, it's quality control, really, and also gatekeeper. That's already come up today, but, there's going to be a real tendency to throw AI at everything just because it's the thing of the moment, and everyone's excited about it. So where I work, we're talking about using AI to analyze all the messages that get sent, and part of me says, well, is this actually a really good application for it? You have to think about the end user. Is the end user going to benefit from this use of this technology? And there will be lots and lots of sort of good uses of it, but I think it's up to us to say, actually, have you thought about using it this way?
Yeah, actually, same things with other words. Basically, I believe like we are the people that need to pay attention to what people need and translate that into the technology rather than just getting excited about all those cool things and just go crazy and build whatever we want. There's a phase for that, of course. We want to discover what we can do, but then we have to tie it back. And I think good designers, they are very good with the foundation. We were talking about Jordan, like, but graphic design is one example of good foundation, right? So like if we have good designers have good foundations to go back to, they will always think about who are the people I'm doing this for? What are the basics that I can tie all these new things back to them, rather than thinking about, oh, I'm going to use Figma. I'm going to use whatever it is. Like, tools don't matter in reality, right? The foundations are the same. If you can do it on paper, like, you won't be able to do it on paper, but if you could, it doesn't matter, right? Yeah, so that's pretty much it. Gatekeeper is a good word, I guess. Like, let's protect users from excitement, maybe.
Yeah, gratuitous use of AI. Yeah.
Any different points? Anything to add on that end?
Thinking.
Yeah, I completely agree with everything that you guys have just said. I think you have to look at it through the lens of the user. Is this good for the user, and will this create opportunities or actually more challenges for the organization? I mean, take high regulation industries, for example, healthcare. If we start rolling out chatbots in healthcare situations, what happens when a user proclaims that they're suicidal and that doesn't get picked up on? Not only is there a huge ethical issue there, but actually we're now getting sued and now we're bankrupt. So I think companies are wising up to this, that we need to walk before we can run. And I think designers play a huge role in this conversation.
Yeah, I agree. I think as designers, people, we design things, right? Everything that you see around you has been designed, even ourselves, right? So when we remove a frame from our faces and enter a different reality, what exactly this will benefit? In what? This will actually benefit the user. I think that's the main question.
And I feel like and you guys can agree or disagree, but I feel like all of you, from what you said, kind of agree. Like the concept of ethics is becoming key to the job, I think. And it is a very low bar in terms of education, I would say. Like there's not a lot of conversation outside of, from what I've seen in senior circles and people who have been doing this for a longer time. But it feels like ethics is still being treated as like an afterthought in a lot of this creation. Is just technology first, ethics later. And I don't know if we can be part of that process or not, or if maybe even, for example, hiring process and trying to engage into that role. I don't know, for example, you guys, both of you are more on that side of things, which you feel like that's part of what people are starting to ask or not. I don't know.
What's your perspective?
Well, I think not yet.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of technology, there's technology that has been invented for the last 10 years and people still don't use those technologies. So I think the question is, who are we designing this for, right? I think most of our products are serving, people that were born after 2000s. That's not my case, not your case, right? So we don't design for our generation anymore. So I think, in my perspective, it's a little hard, to bring another technology if the technology that already exists and it's here is still not being accepted. So.
Yeah, I think from my lens as a recruiter, the kind of conversations that I'm having are not necessarily around ethical knowledge and awareness. It's more about soft skills and personality types. And so my job as a recruiter, as a person who filters candidates through to my clients, is to look for those qualities, to, again, going back to what I said earlier, look for those candidates that find the why in what they do. But conversations that I'm having with leaders at large consultancies like Cognizant, for example, they're actually telling me that surprisingly, a lot of their clients, particularly in the high regulation industries, are really interested in ethics. And I think this is maybe something we don't hear about because it's not really a public conversation. But behind closed doors, from consultant to CEO, this is a really big issue for people, I believe anyway.
Yeah, I think another side to that can be, maybe it's related to ethics, but accessibility as well. Like I see a lot of conversations, especially in big companies, because they can sponsor those efforts around how can we make sure this is not a niche product, but not only from a sales perspective, because I don't know, like for maybe whatever it is, the intention is from like boards and stuff. The people on the ground, designers, they are people like us, right? They are worried about other people. They are worried like about not making bad in the world, like not harming anyone. So there's a natural concern about like how can we make this accessible so that everybody can enjoy this, so that people can represent themselves identity-wise and all of that, right? So it's not really about ethics in all ways, but I think it's an important topic as well that needs to be considered for all this.
I think one of the ethical challenges is that how low a barrier to entry AI has. So anyone can create these deepfakes now. And one of the things I'm sure designers, you have a keen sort of visual sense. I bet that you're all better than average at spotting, phishing emails, because something doesn't look right, and then you check the email address it's come from, and it's some random person in Japan. I mean, to give another example, you know that famous picture of Donald Trump praying in church? Someone's looked at that, and it does look superficially very real. And someone said, that's great, let's distribute it on the internet, and everyone will see it, and everyone will believe Donald Trump's a born-again Christian and everything. But actually, you have a closer look at it, and he's got 6 fingers on each hand. And so a designer wouldn't let that sort of thing happen. So I think we have a responsibility to make sure that AI is used ethically. We're, as I say, we're a gatekeeper for that.
Okay, so that gatekeeping work, I feel like it's important, but we already ended up touching on a point, which is the shift, and Mao brought that up with like the fact is like we're building a lot of technologies, we're building a lot of stuff more and more, faster and faster. Do you feel like we're actually being able to adapt to this as a class? Do you feel like when you see younger designers or when you see colleagues that we are actually managing to understand overall, or is it still conversations that happen in spaces like this where like there's a handful of us who actually care?
I would encourage people to be, you can't understand everything. Everything's changing so quickly. You try and sort of be T-shaped about new technology. So play around with it, have a lot of fun with it, and then decide exactly where you want to devote your time. So I did a course in voice UX, and I found it really interesting, but I could see, it would demand all my time. I wouldn't be able to do anything else, any other type of design. It's so demanding, it's so different in the way it's sort of set up and tested, etc. So play around with it. Where do you want your career to take you, and which direction? And pick and choose.
I think that's brilliant advice. Sounds like the weather's picking up outside as well. Maybe that's a sign we're shifting into the new realm. Yeah, I completely agree. I think, in answer to your question, I don't think necessarily everyone's woken up to the shift that's happening. I think that was partly what I kind of wanted to try and convey, that design is changing before our very eyes, and some things will change, I think, more dramatically over the next sort of 5 to 10 years. And so as a community, we need to look to ourselves and see where is our value, and look at what we enjoy, and look at the transferable skills that we have. And we were just having a nice chat before we got on stage, and we were talking about the passion that we all share for typography and graphic design. I mean, I said to Jon, you don't know many typographists that have a yacht. And there's a good reason for that.
I don't know if João is still in the room, but yeah, he is a typographer.
Does he have a yacht?
Do you have a yacht? No. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, sorry, mate. Didn't mean to throw you under the yacht there. But yeah, the point that I'm making is that we still will have this ongoing love, passion for craft, real craft. I don't think that's going anywhere. And I imagine in 10 years' time, we're still going to have client-facing websites. You're not going to go onto your local banking website, and maybe you will, but hopefully not. VR banking, numbers everywhere. But yeah, that's my take on it.
Yeah, I agree. And I think, like I said before, foundations are constant, right? Like, adapting to change should be less about like being desperate and excited about those things and more about being open-minded about the medium. Again, it's very likely, I'm not like being a prophet or anything, but it's very likely that the tools we use today will be very relevant in 1 year, right? Yeah. Or they're going to be very different. So it's like it's the first thing that shouldn't matter, for example. That's the type of thing that I believe designers should adapt to, because in the past, there was a need for more invested time in learning tools, learning how they work, because they were overly complex and very exclusive to what they do. Right now, like, whatever you can do in Figma, you can do in 10 other tools, right? Yeah. So I guess that's the first thing that should go. And adapting to that mindset is already like a huge jump. Like, you're already ahead of everyone. If you know how to think, you're good. That's what I would say. Like, I work with Deploy like quite a bit with designers and stuff for some things. And every time I talk to them, like, how does these people think? No, they don't think. Okay, let's skip. Because many people, they are too focused on the skills that are not really what matter. And yeah, adapting to that is already like...
And there's another thing that I'd like to add to this conversation is that how about the load of learning that our users are having with these new technologies, right? Mm. So we throw new products to the market and people still don't know how to use their own banking website. So for example, I'm sure you guys got one of these, right? Yep. This is a pen. In my mind, cognitively, I see a pen, but it also is a pen for my phone, right? I can write on a paper still, but it is also a pen that allows me to write on my iPad or iPhone or anything else. But there is two other uses for this pen, but it's still a pen. So if a designer who thought about this has to explain to me how to do this, some people may think this is not a very good design, because if I have to explain the use of this product, people won't see value on it. There's two extra features in this pen, right? One, this is a screen cleaner. You can clean your phone with this small whatever it is, this, right? If I didn't tell you guys that, would you find this out? And the second one, this is
also... everyone to clean their screens.
Please clean your screen. And the second one, guys, it's also a phone holder, right? Also? Have a look.
Ooh. There you go. Let's see.
Let's see how it works.
Yeah.
It's still a pen, and if I give it to my father, what do you guys think he's gonna do with this?
He's gonna write on paper.
He has a phone. He needs to clean his phone. He speaks a lot when he speaks, and also it's still a pen, right? So if I have to explain, is it really a good design, right?
Cheers, mate. I appreciate that.
Now you're gonna see, of course.
So that's exactly the sound of what I have in mind.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, exactly.
Appreciate it.
But that's the thing, right? Like, at the end of the day, we have this process of, and I feel like even when building products, that initial ramp of learning ramp of using a new product and trying to understand how these things work is always on the mind of who builds those products. But at the end of the day, that learning ramp has to be shorter and shorter and shorter because of the cycle of new and new and new, right? Mm. So everyone defaults to patterns that become familiar at the end of the day. And that's why I feel like when they getting around like the iPad generation and kids that can more easily play a game and watch YouTube than they can write a couple of words on paper, it doesn't mean that it's just that the entry point is so low that technologically they probably don't need to think about it. Mm-hmm. And maybe that's also a good conversation to have, like, what point does your early interaction with technology affect the way that you're then going to think about it in the future, right? Because I feel like all of us went to different stages of zero technology to too much technology in our lives, in different stages of our lives, of course. And you know that shifted us. And I talk about this a lot between even just the concept of Gen Zs and millennials, because it's a lot of what's still on the culture, although we already have supposedly the Gen Alphas, which I but keep forgetting which year that it starts, but okay. But the fact is, like, Gen Zs are considered less technologically adequate in the sense that they are usually expecting everything to be so easy that even when they're put to a challenge, they face better, or at least many studies they do say that they face more difficulties because they didn't have to deal with the fact to discover things. And now with the speed, I feel like that's even gonna, I don't know if it's gonna get worse, but I know it's gonna change a lot of how we even think about technology as a whole, because we talk about generations just because it's starting from young, but even ourselves, like the way that we interact with the phone today, if we think about when we were kids and if they existed in the way that they exist or now, like it's completely different. But yeah, okay. With all this in mind, and talking about all the stuff that we talked about and building amazing pens, because of course, the fact is that we as designers, our roles have never been the same, I think. Like if we think about 20 years ago, 10 years ago, 5 years ago, 2 years ago, the role keeps changing, and it feels like it's faster and faster. And one of the things that I've noticed with the market, but I would love to think if you guys agree or not, is that designers are going from the concept of just being designers to being more and more asked to be builders. Do you feel like that's the way to go? Do you agree or disagree with that expectation? What do you think?
I think it depends on what layer front of design you go for. I think the more user-facing is your delivery. For example, if you want to be more focused on UI interactions and stuff, it's very likely that you need to be more of a builder, and I'm a very strong advocate for these people to know what's the core matter of that. Like, for example, code, right? You need to do that. But depends on how you abstract the word building as well. But but for example, I don't see that there's a need for people for everyone to become a builder in that sense. There's always going to be a need for people to design services, design strategy, and even design just, I don't know, the experience from a very kind of more corporate level, like we were here for Paulo as well, right? So I don't see, like, for now, the need for that to change, but again, you might adapt on what tools do we use, how much do we use and leverage all those new technologies, AI, whatever, to make that more, I don't know, faster, or more kind of, I don't know, to streamline the process as a whole, right? But it depends on what you mean by build. If you mean build, I will deliver the final thing. I guess it depends. Many tools will do that for you, so you have to be careful about how much you go there. But knowing that doesn't hurt anyway.
Yeah. I also think it depends where you want your career to go. So if you want to work for a startup, you'll be in a small team, you'll be cooperating, you'll be working 12, 14 hours days, so 14 hours, yes, but you know, there'll be few of you, so your skills are going to have to be more diverse, and you're going to be hands-on in more things. I think when you're working as part of a team in a corporation, in an agency, your role is always going to be much more structured, and you're going to be much more of an expert in one particular vertical. So it kind of depends. It really does depend what you're interested in, what you want to do. So.
Yeah, I think I completely agree. It does depend on the context. And it also depends, like Jon said, on the definition of builder. You know, like, for example, do we look at a builder, like a construction worker, as a designer, right? So we have to really look at how we work that phrase. You know, for me, my perspective, a designer who's also a builder is a kind of creative visionary who's really hands-on at executing. And I think, as I mentioned earlier, within the AI space, I think this way of being a builder is potentially the future in AI design, because you kind of have the tools to, you know, build like never before without having to be a coder. But it takes a specific type of person and skill set to be that kind of designer, and not everyone needs to be.
I guess it takes me to a topic, maybe it's a provocation for recruiters. Like, there's always been this debate, always, for a while, between should I be more of a generalist designer versus a more of a specialist, and maybe if you call a specialist a builder somehow. So my question to you guys is like, what's your point of view today, especially on those new technologies, on how much a specialist has maybe more opportunities than a generalist that kind of is not really a builder going deep down to like very specialist technology, but can build things, but at the same time can go across more of a T-shape, but I don't know, like, do you guys think one of these has more of a space than others or not?
I think every designer who is also a thinker could also have to be also a maker, right? So we have to try everything. I'm sure I have 3 kids, guys. I remember a song for kids, from Zootopia. You guys have seen this cartoon, right? Try everything. Right, oh, Shakira? Yeah. Come on. No? The little rabbit going to the big city, and then the music was try everything. So I think, yes, every designer is also a maker and should try the technologies to kind of get a boost and try different things,
Yeah, I think in answer to your question, where is the demand at the moment? Personally, I still think the demand is in the specialist domain. I speak to design leaders all the time that are generalists, and they always say, it sucks to be a generalist because you have these niche demand roles where they are looking for specialist skill sets. And this is another one of those age-old debates, but one that I think we all know is a BS debate. Do you need industry experience? Designers have a core set of skills that are supposed to be transferable across domains. And so, yeah, I think, that's my point on that.
But it's always interesting. And every time the generalist versus specialist conversation comes up, I don't know, I've always felt that generalists are great, again, for specific types of roles like first designer or a leader designer, which is someone with a large scale of understanding, while specialists tend to end up more in IC roles and things like that, right? But if you think like that, you don't know if it's a trend, if it's actually a reality, but it's something that it's kind of easily seen, and that's why it feels like bullshit talking about it, right? Like, because why should we be discussing something that at the end of the day kind of has already been defined for a long time?
Yeah, and I do think the polymaths, the generalists, the broader designers have a really important role to play, and I think the future of design will see a resurgence of this generalist. Diverse perspectives and experiences create for good designers, so I think we're going to see a resurgence, particularly within AI.
And I also think that it's going to, and this is personal opinion, but I think it's also backed from the stuff that I keep hearing and seeing about the way that the industry is shifting, which is the rise of smaller design teams. And agencies, specialty agencies. I feel like a lot of the in-house teams, unfortunately, are getting a little bit less value than more destructed into these smaller groups sometimes, because there's an expectation that a bunch of generalists have the same skill set as a good crew of specialists, which is weird, but the man of business affects a lot of this, so at the end of the day, money always screws everything. But I think that's it. Okay. To end on a practical note, and because we really are on time, and also because we know that there's at least a few students here, but also maybe there are some people who are more junior designers or even senior designers who are looking to prepare for the future. What, if you would have to think in about, let's say, 5 years' time, based on the current experience of how things are changing and everything, what would be like a top 3 skill set that you think any designer should have in the next 5 years? I know this is a hard one, but
typography.
Typography. There you go. There you go. You had it here, sir.
Common
sense.
It here
first.
Common sense.
Common sense, of course.
Well, creativity is never going to change. That's never going to go away. That's what makes designers, right? And that's what we should hold on to. I think curiosity is going to become a really important thing. So, don't just hear about these tools. Take them away, see what you can do with them. So, my son just introduced me to this. It's like a voice creation app or mimicking app powered by AI. And it's one of those. There's quite a few. It's called Rescript, isn't it, Huey?
Oh yeah.
Anyway, Rescript. So you're given just a paragraph to read out, and then it can come back and read anything to you off the internet in your own voice. And it's so spooky that, my mum would have been fooled by it. And that gave me an idea, maybe I can try this out. My mum is 92 now, and, wouldn't it be nice to capture her voice and then have her narrate her own life story, at some time. So that's going to be my little personal project.
Nice. That's awesome. That's a cool one.
Joking on the typography thing, but I think crafts is always there, maybe in different shapes. With that comes like attention to detail, many things that today we see lacking in many people that call themselves sometimes UX designers, but they don't really have that side of design. And although they don't need to do that, but you need to know about that, and maybe at least like have a sense of, does my work have that as well? So I can kind of pair with someone that has a stronger sense of that. So I think like the craft is still something that is never kind of a waste, of investment anyway, for how many years is it coming?
I would say adaptability, kind of in line with curiosity, really. We've spoken about the pace of movement in technology at the moment. When I spoke to a client actually recently, and they said, one of the questions that I ask in design interviews is, what's your design process? And anyone who starts with the bloody double diamond, it's like, put the phone down. The point that he's trying to make is adaptability. The answer to that should be, well, I adapt my process depending on the problem space. And I think more and more we're going to need that adaptability in design.
In my opinion, I think we should all have a sense of initiative. I can see from the recruiter's perspective, right? We see that designers are not that, into things anymore, and they are more like they are reacting to something. They are waiting for something to happen. We spoke about this earlier in the speeches about what you do. If someone gives you a task, you just obey for the task, which is not bad at all. But will you interact and go after things, speak to people, go through all the departments of the company? So I think that the designers have always to have that amount of initiative, because we are living in a world where companies they look the same, but they don't think the same, right? So, for example, in one scenario, there is a company where the founders are, all technological. And they provide you every tool that you want in order for you to build something great for the company. Okay, this is good news. The bad news is when the company doesn't have that vision, and the designer is the one who has to bring this vision, and have the patience to make people see the results, right? So it's two completely different scenarios, but we see designers giving up too early. They don't even wait for the effect to take effect, right? So besides having the initiative, I think another skill would be patience. We are always in a rush, right? We have to be patient, and wait for people to adapt to things. This is all what we are speaking here, right? How much time will it take for someone to use the new Meta products, right? A year, 10 years, My father still don't use the bank account website. He still goes to the ATM to pay the bills, right?
Yeah.
For how long have we switched into a website that does that he doesn't trust the system, right?
But it's a good point of view, and it's also in part with some of the stuff that I agree with everything that was said. I feel like the one skill that's in a long term, and this is more like of me as someone who's more and more conscious of what my work does to the world, is like the capacity to slow down. The capacity to pull everyone's strings back and hold on a minute and ask the right questions before we actually go into head down building craft or whatever. It makes full sense to actually do that, but at the end of the day, I feel it's my opinion that that rush leads to a lot of conversations that could have been avoided with the why.
I think that's a really, really good point. Really good point.
And with that, I think we're done here. I hope you guys enjoyed the conversation. Since today was already a little bit late, I'm not going to do Q&A. Sorry about that. But all of us are going to be here. So why not come with questions? Bring your voice to all of us during the breaks. If I'm not in a meeting, because apparently today I'm also working while I'm here. So, but I'll do my best to help you guys, and I hope you have the rest of a great conference. And thank you everyone for joining me on stage.
Thank you, Jonathan.